In this video, you'll be learning how to complete the prep assignment for CSIS 115A. So at this point, I've already downloaded my source code editor, which is Visual Studio in this particular case. If you haven't done this yet, you're going to need to go back and review this tutorial here, which is at the CIS website at vs/download. So there's several options as far as your choice of editors that you can use in this class. We recommend Visual Studio just because we use that in all of our classes. And so with Visual Studio, once you download it and install it, you'll eventually get to this workload screen, and this tells you basically which ones you need to have selected for which courses you're enrolled in based on this table down here. And we have a little video for you though that also explains the workload process and how to get it set up. So that's already been done at this point. To complete the prep assignment, what I need to do is open up that folder, the student data files folder that we downloaded and extracted previously. So to navigate to it, I'm going to go to the File menu here in Visual Studio and choose Open and then Website. Very important for the CSIS 115A and also for any of the web development classes that we open our folder as a website each time. So I'm choosing the option from the File menu, Open, and then from the flyout menu that appears, I'm choosing Website. Now it's asking me to point the Visual Studio program to where that folder is that contains the website. So I downloaded it and extracted it on my desktop here. So there is the 115A folder that is the extracted folder. So after you've downloaded the zip file and you've extracted it, then you should have a root folder, CSIS 115A. And then that contains all of the subfolders, which are the assignments that you use in the class. So we always have to open from the root folder because that maps to, when we go to publish our files, it'll map to what is configured, the folders and the way they're arranged on the student web server. So we're selecting the root of our website, the CSIS 115A folder, and then we click Open. And then on the right here in the Solution Explorer window, now you can see that I have this globe icon right next to that 115A folder and then all the subfolders that we saw previously. To complete the prep assignment, it's actually fairly easy at this point. We just need to open up this file right here, double click on it, and then in this case I'm actually viewing just the source code for this file, and we can come in and edit the source code. I mean, that's pretty much what this course is about. And so what we could do is just simply, between these two H1 tags right here, is type in our name, and that's really all that's required for the only change that's necessary to complete this assignment. Then we'll just need to publish this up to the student web server. So a couple of things here. First of all, let me just back up a second and show you that you can also open this file in a split view. That'll show you both your source code and your view, your design view of what the page looks like in a web browser. And so to change the default nature of Visual Studio, I need to right-click on this .htm file. See, the file is named default.htm. So when you right-click on that, a context menu pops up, and I'm going to choose from there Open With. The default is just to use their basic HTML editor, but there's a much better editor for you to use, which is the HTML Web Forms editor. Don't choose the one that has with encoding. Just choose HTML Web Forms editor, highlight that choice, come over to the right, click on the button that reads Set as Default, and you'll see that the word default moves now to the end of that selection. So now every time I double click on a .htm file, by default it'll use the Web Forms editor. And then just click OK to accept that change. Now it's telling us the document's already open. Do we want to close it? So we'll just go ahead and say yes. And then it reopens this for us, as you can see now, in this split view. So I've got my source code on the left and my design view on the right. Just should point out that below the source code view there, you'll see there's 3 buttons that have been added. So this is what you'll see when you're using the Web Forms editor. You won't get this with the default HTML editor. So I can switch now between exclusively the design view, exclusively the source view, or in a split view. And if you want to modify the way that your windows are organized here, by default Visual Studio likes to organize them vertically. In other words, the source code's on the top and the design view's on the bottom. I prefer the split view to be set left and right. And so there is a tutorial in the Visual Studio pages that explains how to go about making that change. The next thing that we want to focus on is we need to set up the publishing process here so that we can publish our file to the student web server. To do that, we go to the View menu, and from the View menu we choose Toolbars, and then from the toolbars you'll see that there's an option Web One-Click Publish. You probably don't have a check to the left of that because by default when you first install Visual Studio that tool is not on the toolbar. So you need to click on that option. That'll put a check there, and that will then create this toolbar that you see up here at the top of my screen that it says Publish to the left, and then Create Publish Settings here, and then there's a couple of icons including the settings icon there. So to set up the web publishing, we have to basically configure all the options that are necessary to be able to copy our files from our local computer up to the student web server. In order to do that, then we click on this down arrow and then select New Custom Profile. Once we get here, it's asking us to identify the target, and you want to choose IIS, FTP, etc. We actually use FTP. And then come down here to the lower right of this dialog box and click on the Create Profile button. Now in this dialog box, this is the profile for this particular website now, and we want to choose FTP as the publish method. The server is ia.msjc.edu. No need for a path there. Just leave the check in the passive mode, that's fine. Now for your username, you're going to put in there your first initial followed by your last name. So your username is just first initial, last name. Your password is your first initial, your last name, and the last 3 digits of your student ID. Once you've typed those two in, go ahead and click the checkbox that reads Save Password. If you don't do that, it won't save your password, and every time you go to publish, you'll have to retype your password. So to prevent that from happening, put a check in the Save Password checkbox, and then click on the Validate Connection. You should get a green check next to that Validate Connection button as long as you have everything up here set up correctly. The key is FTP, the server name, your username, and the correct password. So usernames are not case sensitive, passwords are. And again, for your password, it's all lowercase, first initial, last name, last 3 digits of your student ID. Once you have validated and you get the green check, then all you have to do is save. Now that you're ready to publish, let's go back and double click on our default HTML file here. We do need to make a change here before we publish it. So I'm using the design view now, whereas I demonstrated using the source code view previously to make this change. And all that you're requested to do in this assignment is just to take the text that is already there, change it, and put your name in place of it. So once that's done, I'll save my page, Control S, or I go to the File menu and choose Save. And now to publish it, because we've already set up our publishing profile, in fact you'll notice a new folder and a new file has been added up to the top here of my 115A folder. That's the actual information we just created in that publishing profile. So once that publishing profile is set up, I should be able to then just right click here on my default HTML file. So this is the file I want to now publish up to the student web server, and then choose this option here, Publish Default HTML. Go ahead and give it a click. It'll publish the file up to the server, and then you need to verify that that does exist on the server. So open up a web browser, type in the student web server's address, ia.msjc.edu, and then your folder name, which is going to be your first initial, last name. And once you press enter, you should then see the site